and go.
All right, thank you all so much, Michael. Thank you for everything you've done, and thank you, all you loyal people. No, go back to the give me the title. Okay, thank you. Go back, title slide. Perfect. All right, so we have just come through one of the most challenging years that any of us have experienced in this lifetime, perhaps the most challenging. I think it's safe to say that we're all hoping and praying that the worst is over. This is true to some degree as the new year unfolds, but we're not done with something until we're done with it. Everything unfolds exactly as it's supposed to in its own time. Experience is like water. It must fill up every space it passes through. The great astrological cycles that began in 2020 will now unfold and expand as we move through and past 2021. The Saturn-Pluto cycle is about 35 years long. It began last January and coincided with the first cases of coronavirus in the United States. A Jupiter-Pluto cycle is 12 years long, and its perfection or exact meetup happened 3 times this year. At each occurrence, there was a spike in COVID cases and new lockdowns. A Jupiter-Saturn cycle is 20 years long. It just happened this week. These cycles occur with regularity, but rarely with this impact. Why was this year so traumatic? Dwarf planet Eris, which is only diminutive in size, has been the force majeure that is responsible for our current burden of suffering. Eris is the Greek goddess of chaos and discord. However, she is also the evolutionary pulse that is dictating a burst of forward progress. The current relationship between Pluto and Eris by sign and aspect has only occurred once in recorded history, in 691 BCE. During those years, Buddha, Lao Tzu, Plato, Pythagoras, Zarathustra, and others brought the great thought streams of Western civilization onto the planet. At the end of the Trojan War, for which Eris has been assigned culpability, Aeneas, a member of the royal Trojan family, sailed to Italy and founded the city of Rome, giving birth to the Roman Empire, which lasted 1,000 years and whose heritage remains to this day. The Jupiter-Saturn cycle that just began with the Christmas star is part of an elemental cycle that is 200 years long. Archetypal forces are in motion that must by necessity run their course toward their fated destination. What is that fate and destiny? It is the healing of the cultural toxins exposed after centuries, and in some cases, millennia. The xenophobia, misogyny, elitism, and white supremacy that darkened our time did not originate in the last year, or in the last decade, or the last century. The unfortunate and inconvenient truth is that these shadows in the human psyche have been around since the beginning of recorded history. Religious intolerance came over on the Mayflower. Slavery and white supremacy emigrated from Europe, carried by the first settlers to the New World. Slavery was institutionalized in the economics of the time. It did not end with the Civil War. It just became segregation. When we take the long view and understand where this progression of challenges is leading us, we can begin to come to terms with the struggles and deprivations that we have been handed. There is an astrological, did you see me? There's an astrological long count similar to the Mayan calendar that marks a progression of history across many millennia. It's known as the precession of the equinoxes, which is the observable phenomena of the rotation of the heavens. It describes a cycle of time which spans a period of approximately 25,920 years, over which in time the constellations appear to slowly rotate around the Earth, taking turns at rising behind the sun at the vernal equinox of 0 degrees of Aries. This galactic calendar coincides with Hindu sacred text that tells us of the cycle of great periods of time called the yugas. According to Vedic astrologer Sri Yukteswar, teacher of Paramahansa Yogananda, at the pinnacle of this great cycle, there once existed a golden age during which our planet, oh, no, go back, I'm sorry, go back one, during which our planet was, during which our planet was inhabited by a race of people of high consciousness in possession of advanced technologies, including clairsentient skills that are at our present state of collective development we have only begun to understand. Excuse me. These cultures left behind only the remains of their cities and communities that were built from stone. Nothing else survived, save their knowledge hidden in mystical writings, practices, and the divinatory arts such as the I Ching, Kabbalah, astrology, and other ancient sacred texts, including the Hebrew alphabet. According to the cycle of the yugas, approximately 200 to 300 years ago, we crossed the nadir of this great circle of time and began the return back towards the next golden age and the recapture of our human birthright that was lost so long ago. We still carry forward the malignant miseries of the dark ages that preceded our current times. Depth psychology informs us that these emotional frequencies are resident within our subconscious. So we've turned a corner in the long run. The dark ages are behind us. The trouble is we keep dragging the past forward into the present and repeating it as the future. We have turned a corner in the short run too. 2020 did bring the enormous gift of small victories. 2020 has passed. However, in its wake, the cultural imbalances that were denied or dismissed have been revealed to the sunlight. Natural law, those laws like the Ten Commandments and the Hermetic principles, can now begin the process of healing a reflection of the current transits of the lunar nodes through the signs of cognitive Gemini and truth-seeking Aquarius. The age of Aquarius is an arc of the precession of the equinoxes. The current time we are passing through is a liminal space between the age of Capricorn and the age of Aquarius. None of the known methods of calculating the celestial ages agree on the exact dates, but perhaps observation and correlation can help us identify where we stand. One remarkable bit of data of our age is that the rapid advancement of technology. In the last 75 years or so, there have been more scientific advancements than in the previous 250 years. Our world is filled with devices that would have stupefied our grandparents. The Mayan calendar reflects this compression of time. Each step on the pyramid model of their calendar is 20 times shorter than the step below, generating a geometric proportional compression of time. We can learn much about the archetype of Aquarius from the astronomy and correlations to history of the discovery of Uranus, the modern ruler of Aquarius. The discovery was nothing less than revolutionary, upending 4,000 years of astronomy and the belief that Saturn, with his visible outer rings, defined the outermost limit of the solar system, a belief that had stood for millennia, dating back to Mesopotamian times. Mythically, Saturn committed patricide and displaced his father Uranus. This ancestral pattern was passed on to his son as Zeus deposed Saturn in the same way. True to the nature and impact of its discovery, Uranus correlates to revolution, as it was first observed at the time of the American and French Revolutions and the drafting of the US Constitution, a revolutionary document in its own right. In the shadow of his sudden and unexpected demeanor, Uranus interrupts and disrupts the crystallized behavior, implacable beliefs, and irresolute sets of circumstances that were structured and set in place by the Saturnian Capricorn dynamics of the preceding zodiacal sign. The conscious expression of Uranus evidences genius, inspiration, and personal growth. The year 2020 gave us many good examples of this entire spectrum of expression. Coronavirus and Donald Trump and the collateral damage they caused to our sense of normalcy, security, and emotional well-being are the most prominent examples. I see both as cultural homeopathic remedies. In my work and personal life, I have also observed individuals who were driven to activate their personal bucket list with an if not now, when attitude. Aquarius is about community. Over the last 40 years, Marshall McLuhan's spaceship Earth has materialized as a virtual world called cyberspace. Uranus is about technology. The wealth of the nation has shifted from hardware to software as information became the most valuable asset. Digital enterprises like Facebook, Amazon, and Apple rose to the pinnacle of corporate worth and made their founders among the wealthiest entrepreneurs on the planet. It has been suggested that the ignition point for our scientific advancement occurred in 1947 in Roswell. No, go back. Sorry, there was just one finger. It has been suggested that the ignition point for our scientific advancement occurred in 1947 in Roswell, New Mexico. If you can consider for a moment that something truly extraordinary did occur, then the potential exists to understand that highly advanced technology were reverse engineered from what was recovered at that event. Native American myth speaks of star people who brought advanced knowledge, as do Eastern and Western cosmologies, which describe angels and winged beings from the sky. I leave it up to you to decide for yourself. So, what is the long-term effect of the trials and challenges that we face? Are these interruptions and disruptions meant to weaken us or to make us stronger? As I look ahead, I see the outgrowth of the dynamic revolutionary and evolutionary energies that erupted over the last 12 months and longer. People are beginning to wake up and commit to their beliefs. We may not agree with what they believe, but the outgrowth of the commitment to self-authenticity is undeniable. These turbulent energies will now take flight as the astrological frequencies morph from the solidifying, static Earth energies of Capricorn to the effervescent, heady air of Aquarius. Can you hear the fifth dimension singing? Can we expect harmony and understanding, sympathy and trust, no falsehoods or derisions, and the mind's true liberation? Uranus is living up to his sudden, unexpected, interruptive, and disruptive reputation. Saturn planted the first seeds of Aquarius in 2020 from March to December. It was in March that all the shit hit the fan. It seemed that there were lots of falsehoods and derisions, but not much sympathy or trust abounding. The meetup of Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius in December began a reset of the structure of power. Jupiter will spend all of 2021 in the sign of Aquarius. Saturn will hang out there until 2023, just in time for Pluto to join the party. The United States will experience its first Pluto return, the ending and start of an evolutionary 250-year cycle during this time. I believe that it has already begun. We don't really know exactly what it will look like from beginning to end because no one is alive now who was around for the first time. But from where I sit, if we observe what's going on around us, we might begin to recognize this major cultural event and begin to see the big picture of what is happening. In my humble opinion, what we need to do is to recognize that the disruptions to our world have arrived on schedule. We must surrender to what we know in our hearts must be done. The issues that we face, climate change, volatile political polarity, racism, xenophobia, misogyny, and white supremacy are cancerous growths in our global field. The clock is ticking. According to Native American mythology, the world as we know it has been destroyed 3 times. We are presently in the 4th world. Western religion and culture also speak of prophecy and end times. All of the versions of the Bible relate the story of the flood, which at least once destroyed the world. A Negro spiritual tells us, God gave Noah the rainbow sign. No more water, fire next time. The Hebrew prophet Isaiah warned 20,000 years ago of the coming of an antichrist, someone who would come to power, a man of lawlessness. The stories told by the Native American elders inform us that we are at the end of the fourth world. They have also told us that this time the fifth world will emerge, even as the old world is going away. Three worlds have come and gone before us. No, sorry. Three worlds have come and gone before us and gone back, and only their barely understood monoliths remain. What will be our legacy thousands of years into the future? The rusted remains of skyscrapers and automobiles will be long gone. Perhaps only what is made of plastic will remain as our epitaph. How fitting. We are at an evolutionary turning point. How many of us must die through wars and disease before we finally wake up? How much of the natural and man-made world must be destroyed before we recognize that our connection to nature is our true divinity and begin to behave like the gods and goddesses that dwell above us and within us? Indigenous tribes dance ecstatically with drums and rattles as part of their ceremonies and rituals to alter their consciousness and reset their vibrational frequency. Eris's rattling and beating of her drum resonates with golden opportunities to review, revisit, and rework the fundamentals of our collective agreements, our essential needs, and our self-understanding. Uranus has convulsed what has become crystallized, sheltered consensus thinking, opening channels for new ways in which the greater world community can actualize. What are we going to build in the place of what is clearly going away? This year, preeminent asteroid Pallas Athena has informed the zeitgeist with new strategies for the future, providing practical solutions to old problems. Are we listening to what we are hearing with our inner ear? Jupiter and Saturn have begun the restructure of the world as we know it, exposing the beliefs that have misdirected us. Contrary to the 60s meme that states you are what you eat, I maintain that you are and become what you believe. Pluto has exhumed our collective shadow and shown us what we need to heal, driving our evolutionary path forward to the common dreams that we all share in our hearts. He is showing us the wall that we must climb. He asks, do you want to go head first or feet first? We're going to go over it either way. Neptune has whispered to us from eternity with dreams and visions of greater human potentials, dissolving the mental confines that we have erected within ourselves. Is this the dawn of the age of Aquarius? Were we gifted with advanced technologies in 1947 at Roswell? Are the Hopi and other Native American mythologies accurate predictions for our future? Are the prophecies of the Israelite Isaiah regarding the Antichrist true? Are we in reality pushing back against prophecy? I do not have the answers for these questions, but the irrefutable truth is that we are passing through a time that resonates with the most turbulent and revelatory periods in history. The current astrological themes and cycles, including the US Pluto return and the US Neptune opposition, rhyme with the time periods of the American Revolution and the American Civil War. There's also a more ethereal, poetic connection with the periods in world history thousands of years ago when saints walked on the earth and when the glory that was Rome ruled the world. These forces are hard at work, above us, below us, and within us. When we finally learn to surrender and accept the signs and signals we're receiving and allow ourselves the flexibility to change, to become a more conscious version of ourselves, individually and collectively, the new earth that we have been promised will emerge from the ashes of the old. Karma, which is simply the scientific law of cause and effect, is about the choices that we make. If not now, when? We are still on the runway of this flight, picking up speed. Our wheels are just about to leave the ground. It's going to be a heady flight, so please fasten your seatbelts. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Next slide. I have one more slide I'd like to show.
Yep.
I have written much more about this year that's coming. This entire detailed forecast that I've put up on Amazon, 2 versions, ebook and paperback. I point you all towards it. It will answer a lot of questions and fill in a lot of blanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel. Hold on one second as I...
Congratulations, Daniel.
Thank you.